Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Consulting Leaders Podcast, a place where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your own practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you came to the right place. I'm your host, John Degnan. Join me as we talk with the best consultants in their niche. And I got one right here today, welcoming Benjamin P. Taylor, Managing Partner at RedQuadrant and Chief Executive of the Public Service Transformation Academy. He helps governments and public sector organizations navigate complex systems and redesign services for better outcomes. Here in this conversation, we're going to explore how systems thinking, complexity science, and practical consulting methods can transform public services and what consulting firm owners can learn from working inside complex institutional environments. Benjamin, hello, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. Thank you for that generous introduction, John. I'm looking forward to talking.
Yeah, likewise. I guess just to start things off, tell us something about give us a tidbit about Benjamin on a personal level.
Oh, right. I wasn't expecting that.
Good.
I guess, I'm now overlooking the beach. We're living on the south coast of England, having spent a long time in London. But I suppose the thing on a personal level is that I love consulting because I like a little bit of showing off, a little bit of kind of performance and having to focus and being on the spot. Intellectual stimulation, it's very hard to find in a lot of jobs, isn't it? But we get it. And, actually feeling that you may be doing something worthwhile occasionally. So maybe that's something about me as well.
Okay. So you get out of college. What's your first job?
So, I'm sorry, say that again?
You get out of college, you get out of education.
Oh, right. Well, a little range. So even before college, I was a database programmer in compiled Visual Basic in a revolutionary database model called Rescue, which is very special at the time, indefinitely extendable field lengths in our fields. In my year out and then during university and then sometimes afterwards, I was a personal carer for the Spinal Injuries Association, going to provide kind of relief cover when their carers were away for people with spinal injuries. So that was quite different and super interesting in all kinds of ways. And then I guess my first proper job was working as the administrator of a youth development charity when I left university and moved to London. It was a branch of, I think that some people have heard of, called Rally International, which was this amazing organisation set up by Lieutenant Colonel Blashford Snell to provide a bulwark of principled individuality and strong leadership against the communist threat. And it mostly sent very privileged young white boys from private schools on international expeditions around the world. And we were the kind of charity fig leaf, I would say, sending very underprivileged young people at risk of prison and drug use and all kinds of things like that on the same expeditions and doing a development program to help get them out there and support them afterwards and help to sort of change their lives. So that was also super interesting. So I had quite a lot of, I have no idea what I wanted to do, John, when I grew up, and perhaps I still don't.
How did you transition to consulting?
Well, it was quite straightforward, really. That my whole career is that from that charity job, I went to work in a local authority advice centre, so for one of the London boroughs. And that London borough was going through a transition to a new executive leadership model, where we were going to have a mayor instead of a cabinet and committee kind of system. And they advertised the job as the advisor to the mayor. I got that. And that was very much at the centre of the council and, being involved, albeit in a very junior way, in quite a lot of big initiatives. Through that, I got into project work. I became e-government manager for a while. We procured a partner. And then doing that kind of project work, it was an easy transition, and I looked for opportunities and got an interview and got to work for PwC originally in a way that was kind of quite. I just had a couple of interviews and they offered me the job. So even though I was thinking in those days that consultants were the bad guys, they were the evil corporate people who came in for a lot of money, I actually found it very fulfilling and interesting and made that transition. So if you want to kind of pick up from the next question, I don't know if that works for you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you get into public transformation? Transformation.
No, no, just I mean, just how I got a job in PwC in consulting, which was PwC initially,
Okay, okay. Um, what's
if that makes
sure?
sense.
Um,
Hmm.
what specific problem are you helping clients solve through Red Quadrant, and why does solving those problems matter to you personally?
I mean, in it's a really important and big deal how public services serve us and how they support us to achieve the outcomes in our lives. We live in a world that's buttressed and structured and organized by public services. So, you know, it's important. It's a very big deal. And most public bodies are overwhelmed by demand, fragmentation, management noise, and a lot of the time they're having to deal, unfortunately, with symptoms, and there's a big gap between the organisation on paper and the organisation on reality. So, you know, because public services shape people's lives, I think too much institutional effort is still spent on the machine with the best of intentions and no lack of effort, that's for sure. But, you know, we know, everybody in public services knows that we can do so much better to serve the public. But we also know that a lot of what we need to change is countercultural and counter-structural and difficult to fit into a complex political system and so on. So that's what we're working on. The day-to-day is a lot more prosaic, John. Often it might be a target operating model. It might be helping people with inclusive leadership, developing skills to commission and shape systems in complexity. But a lot of it is also finding savings, particularly in the social care space at the moment.
Countercultural, counterstructural. Which one is a bigger animal to deal with?
I mean, I am a bit of a kind of structuralist thinker, so I think they come together. Who was it? Who was that kind of interesting guy who ran as an independent, slightly vaguely libertarian US presidential candidate maybe 8 or 12 years ago or whatever? His name might come back to me, but I remember a quote from him, which I don't think we can take as a good moral stance. But what he said was, I try not to blame people for responding to the incentives of their situation. And you know, that's worth holding in mind, isn't
Yes.
it? So a lot of the culture comes from the incentives of the situation, and I don't mean, you know, what's going to get people a bonus, although it may be holding on to jobs. Some of it will be competition and promotion, and in the reorganizations we're seeing at the moment, you know, we're going to always end up with fewer public servants overall. But what I mean more is, if your job and your identity is to make a thing coherent and manage it and reduce risk and keep the politicians out of the press and the headlines, then you're going to have a certain attitude to risk, attitude to control. You're going to want to standardize. You're going to want to have things that are very legible and coherent and so on. And that cuts across massively what we know works in a lot of frontline public services, which is really listen to the people, really give the frontline staff the power to resolve and respond, and do what people need. So right there, you've got a core tension, you know, built into the way the thing works, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Who are your ideal clients today within the public sector, and who are the decision makers who typically bring you in?
It's a real mess, and one of the reasons I'm interested in way, not just appearing on this podcast, but the conversation with you is we find marketing really, really hard. We're clear our ideal clients are transformation people. It could be change management office. It could be organizational development, HR type people. It could be people who are the head of a transformation team. And that what we do really well is a really medium to long term informal strategic partnership with them, because we can complete strategic projects, we can put people into resource and boost capacity and continue to deliver, and we can build capability within the organization to not need us anymore. So that's our ideal client, and in general it's people who need a problem solved but appreciate actually trying to do the right thing as well as the expedient thing, and there's plenty of those around obviously, but that's not a searchable job title on LinkedIn to target marketing to.
Right.
So that's a constant challenge for us, to be honest, John. And very often the senior decision makers are either those people themselves, and really we want people who've got budget, who've got targets, who are driving a large scale program, or it's chief execs, finance directors, people at the board level, basically.
Sure. How do organizations usually discover Red Quadrant, and what has worked best for you when it comes to attracting new consulting engagements?
Well, most of our work comes through reputation, repeat business frameworks, and 1/3, at least, through competitive open tendering. And that's a hard row to hoe, or yeah, that's the right expression, isn't it?
Yes.
So we've grown by being quite clear about what we believe rather than trying to appeal to everyone, although sometimes we do try to appeal to everyone. So I guess it really is kind of low-key reputation, people we've worked for before, and being able to put good bids together and deliver. I mean, that's obviously important, isn't
Absolutely.
it? That's the best marketing we do, actually, I think, is delivering. And we're not even good enough, unfortunately, at telling the story of how we've delivered, because they're often very messy, complex, even sometimes sensitive stories. But that's no excuse. We should be getting them out there more, saying we've done this and that.
What do you think about podcasting as a marketing tool for consultants working in areas like public sector transformation or systems thinking?
I think it's very hard to tell. I think it's pretty good. I am a huge podcast fan. I listen to hundreds of podcasts, mostly spend hours walking the dog. I do my own little version of this. I masquerade as a kind of thought leadery person on LinkedIn. What I worry about is that is intellectually stimulating. It actually helps to develop the thinking, and to be better at what you do. But the people it attracts are kind of my kind of people, and they may not be necessarily clients. They're often other consultants. They are similar people in the space, rather than, because the clients are often too busy. They need more of a break than listening to a podcast, and so on. But I've observed some people doing it really well in both the public service and the sort of system cybernetics complexity space. So I'm a little bit torn about it. I mean, I love podcasts, so I'm always up for that kind of this kind of exchange. Do you think it works in these kinds of spaces?
I think it works
What's
on
your view?
multiple levels. Number one, I think
Uh-huh.
I'm getting to know Benjamin on a personal level. Behind closed doors or on a piece of paper or on a pitch sheet or pitch deck, something's lost in translation. But for me to
Mm,
understand better your niche, your differentiators, what you do, how you do it, what makes you special, what makes you tick, in a podcast, it really comes through personally. And I think people generally,
mm.
human nature, want to work with people they like, and you're an endearing, nice guy. So I think that really conveys.
Interesting. Yeah, that's good to hear. Well, obviously reassuring.
Sure.
What I'm aware of is that there seems to be some kind of secret power of business development that we don't have, and that the part of that is that we sort of feel it's not quite sporting in public services. There's networking that people do, which is very much kind of doorstepping, land and expand. Even marketing, kind of big, award ceremonies and conferences that we never quite do well at, because that's not really our kind of networking. And yet the people who do it I don't have any concerns about their fundamental ethics. They're decent consultants. We think we're better, of course, but I'm not saying they're not good, and they grow faster than we do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've been in business for 17 years, and we have seen people, constantly go past us. Sometimes then sell out or sell up or go out of business. But we're still here, still doing our thing, but we still feel as though we're under potential, if that
Well, I
makes
think
sense.
too with podcasts, people have the tendency of thinking, well, it's such a small audience, and it takes so much work and
Mm,
time. But thought leadership purveyed properly, focused and channeled, like a bazooka towards your exact ideal clients and your ideal
hmm
fellow consultants and your peers to develop your thought leadership process, I think is golden. I think it's a treasure personally. And I think that this
Interesting.
opportunity just for you
Yeah.
today, for instance, just to get it out in front of, we're top 5
Yeah.
global podcast. We've got over 12,000
Yep.
impressions a week. This is a great opportunity to network.
Yeah, really interesting, really interesting. One of my great regrets is that I recorded a series of about 43 podcasts in those two parallel spaces during before and just during the start of COVID. And I had various attempts with volunteers, with interns, with junior members of staff to kind of edit them. Never really got them into shape. It wasn't that it needed a lot, but we never got that right, and we never actually released them. So kind of a shame,
Mm,
I'm afraid.
interesting, interesting. Um, Government and public sector projects can have long and complicated procurement cycles. How do you navigate the
Mm.
sales process and move opportunities forward?
I mean, you have to accept reality, first of all. The public procurement isn't there to make life easy for consulting firms. Complaining is very popular on LinkedIn. I get a lot of likes and
Mm-hmm.
comments when I do that occasionally, but it's a kind of pointless. So the question is how to work intelligently within the constraints while still creating momentum. And again, while the concept here is competition, and the government says that it supports the development of SMEs, and it kind of would like to, in theory, um, uh, two things are happening. Even on the frameworks that we're on, you might call it panels, that's what they call it in Australia, but you pre-qualify for a certain specialism to be available more easily than an open tender. We are seeing 75 to 85% of the tenders let through direct award, so no competition. So that indicates prior relationships or very quick down selection of candidates. And we of course don't complain if that happens to us. If somebody who knows and trusts us from the past comes along and wants to buy us direct, but it doesn't happen that often. Not and certainly not for large value things for us. So we're obviously not doing it perfectly. Again, in parallel with what I said before, we're not the best at the marketing and sales, but we try to stay visible over time and send out signals that we're still here, do some thought leadership work so that there's a general visibility and uh, background buzz of yes, these are legitimate, trustworthy people. Try to be useful before procurements and build relationships and so on. But really, in that particular in the tender space, we've just become reasonably good at writing very complex tenders. There was one once I remember that required us to have 97
Wow.
attachments of different files of different policy, from a manual handling policy to modern slavery in the supply chain
Mm.
policy, and so on. And all of which, no doubt, important things, but maybe not for what was a leadership development piece of work as a consultancy. um, so you have to be really patient when you've put in a competitive tender. You have to just forget about it and expect that it's been wasted effort and it's never ever going to come back and you're never going to hear anything about it again. Sometimes they drop it. You have to become really good at accepting rejection, because even us as quite good and successful at those tenders, we win about 30%. And you have to be really quite patient. And then when you win the work, as well as doing a good job and all the pressures of normal project management and delivery, The context may easily change, which means that timescales extend, budgets reduce, and all of those kinds of things. What we've learned, if we're in a warm conversation, is just to offer the concrete next step and just keep things moving forward. And even when somebody wants to bring us in, it could be that they need us tomorrow. That often does happen, but it could be we start a conversation and 6 to 9 to 12 months later is when we actually start the work.
Once you capture a client, you build a nice relationship with them. How do you keep them long term?
Well, where it has worked, it's because they just like and trust us, and are in a space where they have a series of needs that are gonna, be required from people like us. As I say, that transformation, organizational development, kind of partnership that we've had a number of those very fruitfully over the years. And in that case, the underlying thing is we are a trusted, reliable partner who is acting on their behalf. Who they trust as an extension of their team, their program, that their relationships in the organization. Um, we get over 95% of our clients coming back for more, but not necessarily a lot more, not necessarily larger pieces of work over time, often quite small, difficult, but interesting pieces. And sometimes we'll do a piece of work for somebody, and then they'll come back to us 5 years later, for something, if you see what I mean. So yeah, it's probably a lot more happenstance, John, than we would ideally like. But it works well in the way it works. Um, but we're not necessarily kind of building it. And of course, one of our points is not to create dependency. We think that's an ethical stance.
Sure, sure.
So we know that there are some consultants still out there who tell clients what they want to hear, make polished artifacts rather than helping things move forward, make themselves indispensable. And we're not in that game. But having said that, I still think there's more we could do to get involved and demonstrate where we could do more and larger scale.
You work in a complex public sector environment. As a consulting firm leader, are you stuck in any areas today, if at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, as you've heard, I'm stuck in a space of not being able to achieve real growth. That's frustrating from a business point of view. It's a declining market in many ways because of austerity and all of the pressures around, and because day rates are not necessarily any higher now than they were in 2009 when I
Hmm.
started. And there's been just a little bit of inflation since then. I guess in the world of the work itself, the need for transformation has never been more obvious, but the capacity to do it has never been under more strain. So the demand is up, money's tight, incentives are often short term, and it's not as though everybody's dropped out of this very difficult market that we're in. We're constantly having new competitors. So there's a really interesting kind of dynamic there. So the challenge isn't proving that our work matters or whatever. It's creating the conditions to make real change happen. If you see what I mean.
Okay. Finally, looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunity for systems thinking and public service transformation over the next few years?
Yeah, in some ways it is. I mean, we are going through massive reorganization in our National Health Service, and in local government at the moment, and in a number of other areas of public services as well. That is underfunded, severely underfunded. Just the local government reorganisation is going to cost £1 to £2 billion over the next 3 to 5 years, and then there's a plan to effectively integrate our social care into the health system away from local government, most likely. So there's going to be huge real opportunities there, and there is a real clarity of a move to better, more relational, more place-based public services. That's something that we kind of really care about. And I think that generally systems complexity, cybernetics, is going to be seen as basic managerial literacy to some degree over time, and it's not really disputable anymore that those skills and that kind of thinking is what people in public services need. So, Red Quadrant will keep working on the consulting side of that, and we can do the large scale change that people are talking about at the moment. And the Public Service Transformation Academy will keep working on the capability side. What we're really wanting to do is to bring those two together in that kind of long-term partnership in a few areas where we can really go deep and really help to drive, long-term serious transformation for the better.
Sure. Well, Benjamin, this has been a great conversation, which I definitely appreciate. If people want to find out more about you and see what you do, where should they go?
Oh, me personally, I have an internet nickname and a website that goes with it, which is antlerboy.com. It's an anagram of the short version of my name. You can also go to redquadrant.com and publicservicetransformation.org, but antlerboy.com will give you links to everything.
Benjamin P. Taylor from Red Quadrant. Thank you so much. We appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.